So when I first heard about COVID, I was sitting in this chair here listening to the news on the radio, and I didn't think it was anything real. It's not until I switched to watching news on the television that it became more real, and even then it seemed like a small problem that people on the media were making a big deal out of. But then it started affecting the stores, and that's when I actually first started to get worried about it. I was worried that it was actually a real issue to pay more attention to. So this is our television set where we watch all our news from, and this is what I was watching to learn more about the corona. If I wasn't watching TV and if I hadn't heard it on the radio, I wouldn't have even known about it until it affected the stores. But because it was being shown in these two formats, I was able to learn before it hit the stores about the disease and warning signs. You know, the first steps of what a person shows when they get sick with the disease, the first signs of the disease, and what to look out for. So once I learned about corona, I began to learn more about it. You know, once it was hitting the stores and we were being exposed to, you know, shortages of stock, and limitations when purchasing, is when it started to really affect me personally. You had to actively participate in getting to know more about the corona and following the new rules which the government were sending out as part of stock policy legislation. So you had to pay attention to it, you know, so that you knew what was going on, you knew what was expected of you when you shopped. You needed to learn everything because the way the disease, you know, began to affect the community made it mandatory for the community to follow special rules about it. I've never in my life been put under a community regulation. I don't think I've ever come even close to any real pandemics. Often they've been cut off from the whole community within the community. Like they've had anthrax scares, but they've been, you know, in the top of some buildings in a city somewhere. You know, they've had SARS scares, but once again, it's affecting mostly air-conditioned spaces. So this one actually affected the whole community and required the whole community to react and respond in required manner. And that's why it's been paid so much attention to by the whole community, because we've had to pay attention to it. So this is my study. This is where I've been coming to spend a lot of time. You know, ever since Corona began to affect the community, a lot of people have been told, stay indoors, stay isolated from other people. And don't go outside, don't even open windows, or some of the regulations of the higher end periods where there was a highly contagious stage of corona being passed around. So I spent a lot of time in my study on the computer. Doesn't matter if you're learning more about Karuna or just entertaining yourself. I was spending a lot of time just in here. For a couple of months I even worked in here from my study, but of course those were not really legitimate jobs, so they didn't earn me any money, but still it was something to do. I paid quite little attention to news after a few weeks of watching the high-scale heightening of the Corona scare. So after you realize, you just sanitize your spaces, you don't go outside for too long, and if you do go outside, you go not in a group but by yourself. When you learn the basic rules, which are to sort of stay indoors or go out as singles or couple and go out for only necessary items like shopping or a quick walk around the block. So once you realize those are sort of the rules that you were required to follow, you pretty much got the fact that you were just supposed to be alone for a while. It's no big deal for me because we don't get many visitors here. But for other people, with families, large families, and people who do have friends and family over on a regular basis, I'm sure it would have been a lot more different for them. But for us, it wasn't too much different. We just did a little bit more cleaning than usual. I sort of, a couple of times a week, I sanitized the windows and all surfaces in the house. And that was really the major difference, to make sure you sanitize. So we haven't actually been hit by Corona here, but I know when it first started, it was when I was working, and it was hitting me hardest then because I felt as though it were unsafe to go outside. The trains, I felt they weren't empty for a reason, and it was because people were either being told to work inside or were afraid to be outside. So the trains were literally empty, and it wasn't liberating or appealing. It was actually more scary because you felt alone, and when doing things alone, you feel like, oh, there's something wrong. And when you're in the height of a Corona scare, you're like, will you go out and catch the disease, So those were sorts of things that were passing through my mind. So it was kind of scary. So it was a big relief when I was let go of my job. It was a big relief to be able to sit at home. But at the same time, it wasn't perfect. It's not as leisurely as you think. People sit at home in family clusters and they get annoyed with each other because they feel like they have to stay at home with each other. And no one really wants, family around all the time. They want to be able to get out, get away from the home and come back to family. They don't want to be around the family all the time. But once again, this didn't really affect me because who I live with still worked throughout the Corona. In fact, they got more busy, and so they weren't here as usual. So I still got my own time to myself. But what made it scary was going outside. It made you concerned to go outside. I refused to go out on a train ride because they're so empty. You're literally one person every 2 carriages, and so that's what made it scary. So I refused to be scared. I said, I can walk around the community block once or twice a day and stick indoors, no problem. I've done it before, and so I can do that no problem. And so during the height of the scare, I refused to take myself anywhere, even though you could, because it just felt like you were just too alone. And being alone made you feel vulnerable and scared and suspicious, of the community. Like, that's when you thought, well, if there's something wrong in the community, I shouldn't be out here. So, the suspicion lies in conspiracy theories of whether corona is just a disease or a planned attack by the government to eliminate people. So that's why you stay indoors, to make sure that you're not susceptible to making theories about corona. You feel safer and you're more likely to survive and you're less likely to get corona. But if you went out and you got it, you could be ranting anything, but because people sometimes find conspiracy theories solve the riddle of why there is such a thing in the world all of a sudden. And any conspiracy theorist could easily come up with, it's a planned government attack to eliminate the human growth rate or something. Or it could be change of hierarchy, social hierarchy. They're getting rid of the workers and keeping the people they want to be the richest people in the world is another theory. But these are just theories. It's not what the news is relaying. So, I didn't catch corona myself during the period of corona, which was literally, it heightened around March this year and ended around October this year. So, and so it was really those full-on months were the most scary. People in stores were wearing face masks. Police were on the street patrolling the street and the pedestrians, making sure no one's walking in a crowd. And those were the peak periods. And during that time, I didn't get corona. And I didn't get, I wasn't in the vicinity of being asked to go in for a blood test because I might have corona. In fact, I was pretty much corona free, but one of my relatives, around July, they, excuse me, one of my relatives, they were in line of having symptoms of corona, but then after tests they were considered corona free, but that was the closest that anyone in our family got to having corona. And it's not a nice thought, we cut short a holiday to be able to, be with the person who was thought to have corona in some way. Well, actually, their shift needed to be covered by the other person who was eligible to cover for their shift, but they also wanted to have their attention paid over the other person in a phone call. So it does affect people when it's there, but no one actually successfully had it for us to be directly affected. But I would say it's possibly one of the scariest subjects that's come up in the past, even 10 years, you know, because it's like one of those virus movies, but in real life. And in real life, you don't know where the happy ending is. And in real life, no one really wants it. No one wants to be told to stay indoors. No one wants to be told to stop working. No one wants even a threat of some incurable disease. They want to get inoculations to make sure they don't get it. They don't want to have it. And no one wants it.
Now, it's great to have good food, absolutely fantastic. But with good food comes good exercise as well. So, yeah, I love making all of the stuff, but I've also got to find time to work out and work it all off. So, sometimes a workout is all the therapy that you need. Okay, and every day is another chance to get stronger, to eat better, to live healthier, and to be the best version of you. Exercise is a celebration of what your body can do, not a punishment for what you ate. And what I love about exercise is that it not only changes your body and keeps you fit, but it changes your mind, your attitude, and your mood. So, yeah, here's me getting ready to get some exercise happening now after all the fantastic eats and dining that has taken place. And for me, the best form of exercise is dancing. I love dancing. I love aerobics. I love Zumba. I love anything that's going to keep me nice and physically fit and healthy. quick run to the store to get 1 or 2 ingredients, and then a leisurely drive home after that. I do love home cooked meals and I love cooking and baking, but I also love takeaways, especially now with COVID and with stage 4 lockdown, where you don't have the shops open too often. There is the urge and the craving for takeaways. So, that does have its place as well in my life. Now, the day we heard from Daniel Andrews, our premier, that Melbourne was going to be on lockdown for 6 to 8 weeks, and that there was going to be a curfew in place, and that there was going to be no dining and we weren't allowed out, that night before lockdown started, I think at 10 o'clock that evening, I went out with my friend and we quickly went to go and dine out at 2 places. We made sure we got that in, we squeezed that in before lockdown started at 10 p.m. that evening. And online shopping must go on. That won't ever stop. On my drive home after the dining out with my friend, just before I reached home, I think it was a street just before turning into my street, I saw an interesting occurrence. A murder of crows, a whole lot of crows all together. Crows, ravens, whatever you'd like to call them. But they'd all swooped down onto the grass and they were there just gathering about, almost like they were having some kind of a meeting. It was just interesting. So I parked on the side and I videoed them. Could not believe this. I've never seen that before. I've seen crows and I've seen ravens, but I've never seen them all come together like this as if to hold a meeting of sorts. So pretty interesting sight. And even more interesting when you've got COVID you're dealing with and then you see these phenomenal sights. Now, during lockdown stage 4, we are allowed to go outdoors to go for exercise as long as it's within 5 kilometers. And I like to go to a little park, which is just up the road, not too far from me. It's just phenomenal. That's where I do my daily walk. I just have, a nice little stroll, sometimes a bit of a jog, or sometimes I'll ride the bike. But often it's just a nice leisurely walk just to get out and about, to get away from home. Because, it can be a bit all-encompassing when you spend the whole day, every day, in your house. So I take a stroll out and I just observe nature, because she's just phenomenal. There's just so much beauty involved in nature. I could take photos of nature all day. I could take videos of nature all day. I absolutely love nature. She's just phenomenal. And my wish is to stay always like this, living quietly in a corner of nature. I think of a few quotes regarding nature. One of them, the poetry of earth is never dead. Absolutely. The earth has its music for those who will listen. Phenomenal. Love it. Absolutely love it. In every walk in with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. Absolutely phenomenal. I think of another quote, let's find some beautiful place to get lost in. And this would be one of the places I'd love to get lost in. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Whatever your mood, you can always feel calm and nice near nature. And all things that are good are wild and free. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Nature's not a place to visit, it's a home. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I'd like to just end on this particular quote. It's hard not to stand in awe and enchantment with the beauty in which nature expresses herself. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? There's no Wi-Fi in nature, but I promise you, you'll find a better connection. An understanding of the natural world and what's in it is a source of not only a great curiosity, but great fulfillment as well. Trees are the earth's endless effort to speak to the listening heaven. And the more time you spend with nature, the deeper your understanding of its life and what life will be. Memorable moments are no longer celebrated the way they were done before COVID. Now it's just a quiet family affair. This is a birthday celebration with just the very close family.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joshie. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joshie. Happy
COVID also gives me the time to spend some fun time at my keyboard. When I'm not on site doing supervision, then I'm at home resting and relaxing. I'm either writing poems, or I'm reading a novel, or I'm listening to some cool music, or watching movies, or playing a few video games. Sometimes just sitting outside and looking at the phenomenal day and seeing all of nature. A gorgeous day outside my home today. Everything is just peaceful, calm, and quiet.